Hello and good evening, everybody. Coming to you just a couple moments late, but we've got a fantastic conversation happening. There was some engagement on the last podcast, which was fantastic. We definitely want to talk about that. And we're going to kind of expand on what we were talking about last time. We were talking about how our phones all hacked by foreign adversaries and what we can do about it. We want to actually talk a little bit more about what you can do to protect yourselves in these situations, and knowing that your phone might be compromised, what's the best course of action? Because you can't turn it off and hide in the mountains, become hermits, but maybe we could do something else that's slightly more intelligent and keep you in society. I'm John. Got a team with us. We got Mike with us.
Hey, everybody.
Got Jackson.
Hey, how's it going?
And as always, our flight engineer is Artie.
Wait, I'm the one flying?
Well, you're the engineer. I don't know who's the pilot, but we'll take turns.
That's what autopilot's for. You just set it and forget it.
They got some pretty fantastic little planes nowadays where you can almost autopilot the entire trip. I don't know if I trust my life in the hands of AI like that, but in an emergency, why not?
That's a discussion for another day for sure.
Yeah. No, that's not how to stay safe from Salt Typhoon. Don't get in the air.
I'm just imagining Tesla with their with their visual system only, right? That's their whole thing is we operate solely on camera and visual information. Trying to implement that with an airplane would be hilarious.
So the
Yeah.
Tesla thing in a Boeing?
We flew into a cloud.
Oh.
What do we do?
Oh my.
You get
Just
airplanes running into other airplanes.
Just don't be on the plane with a whistleblower, right?
Right. There's actually a lot of really neat technology, at least on the commercial airline type airplanes. I follow some YouTube channels that talk about aircraft accidents and what contributed to those and everything like that. But there's a
Are you
lot of
planning
redundant. Yeah, there's a
your
lot of
next move?
redundant. No. I enjoy being firmly on the ground. So, but there's a lot of redundant systems that it takes it a while for something to really go wrong. I mean, it's almost like you have to be trying, to have a mishap in that case. But there are a lot of neat systems, and it's pretty amazing what they've done safety-wise to protect flights from, airplanes from flying into each other or from, getting too low to the ground or in an unsafe condition where it might cause an accident, things like that. So, on one hand, at what point do you call it AI? I don't know. But, I think we've all seen iRobot, and we have these fears of, riding in a bus or something, and all of a sudden the bus, turns evil and wants to take you to the police station or something like that.
That's pretty funny.
I don't know if taking you to the police station's evil, but I guess it depends on what you did that day, right?
Right.
Well, finding ways of protecting yourself against automated attacks is almost the same as what it's going to take to protect us against these the potential, well, not countermeasures, but the attacks that are coming at us. So I actually heard this week that 3 telecom providers have said we have successfully flushed out all the bad guys. Our networks are safe and secure.
How do they know?
I don't believe that.
Where's their proof? Like,
Yeah, I mean, like prove aliens don't exist, right?
The only way they could
Well, I
actually
don't-
prove that is if they disconnected the entire network from the internet. They're
And
not in the network, technically.
that's probably the biggest challenge is you can't turn off your telephone company and stay in business and have customers use your phone service because it's got to be connected. So
Sure.
you have to stay connected.
just send out a notice. Dear customers, we're going to be offline all day tomorrow. So enjoy a break. I don't know.
I remember the days when that was
international
a
disconnect
usual
day.
thing.
Yeah, why don't they bring that back? I think it's needed more now more than ever. But the whole thing, they're like, oh yeah, it's all good now. It's like, yeah, remember that back door we had? It's okay, we just shut it again. Well, did you change the locks? No, but it's shut.
We
Locks?
shut it. We don't need no stinking locks. We shut the door.
Why would somebody
Well, I mean,
want that?
it's pretty bold to say that we have flushed out all the bad guys. They were in the network since 2022. We don't know which network they were in, but that's when the logs in some of these telecom providers have said that they've had access. So if they were in there for 2 years, and now they say, yeah, we flushed them out. Did you? You just closed one door. You closed one window.
Doesn't that take some intelligence to know who they were? To know if they're not there anymore? I mean, yeah, Jim's not here. We got Jim out of the room, but is Jim the only guy we're worried about? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, the other thing too
Definitely
is
apologize to anybody watching this podcast that is
I have a
named
lot of
Jim.
friends named Jim. They're good people, trust me. It's okay.
well, I mean, when you have someone that's been in your system for that long, I mean, I imagine me as a bad guy, if I were a bad guy, I get into somebody's house, I'm gonna make sure I start planning routes there. I want to make sure I can get back. Even if they do discover that I've figured out a way in, I'm gonna put all sorts of things that are gonna allow me to get back in. So I mean, it's
Well, one of the usual things hackers do when they get into a network. There was a Microsoft Exchange vulnerability like about a year ago. Go figure, Exchange vulnerable. The bad guys got a hint of what the problem was, and they went in, and then as soon as they were in the system, they patched the vulnerability. So effectively, using the analogy, it's like going into the house and close and lock the door behind you. You're in, but nobody else can get in now through that same vulnerability.
That almost makes it look like they're supposed to be there.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a bold statement to say that we've flushed them out and they're gone. You flushed out the current issue, but you don't know what other hooks and footholds they might have. So here's a question for you guys. Your text messages are being snooped. What do you do?
Take the stance that not anything that I text would be something that I wouldn't care if the whole world knew it, which means it's not going to be sensitive information. It's not going to be passcodes that come in as part of a two-factor authentication. It's not going to be personal details like birth date and social security number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, even address, phone number, things like that. So, hey, how you doing? That's about the limit that I'd be comfortable with it, maybe a couple emojis. I don't know.
Yeah, there's some real scams. One of the easy ways scammers can get a hold of you, or in this case, hackers, bad guys, is to take no known bit of information and say, hey, I'm that person you met last week at the business get together, or I'm that person you met last week at the vacation spot. Forgive me, what was this about again? You just bought a car? Cool. Tell me about that new car you bought. And then now they know 2 things about you. Then they get 3 things.
Lately on my
not
phone,
a big deal.
I've been getting questions like that, like, hey, how's it going? It's just like the pretend buddy, trying to strike up the conversation. There's probably been about maybe just 3 of those in the last month that I've got, maybe 4. The other ones that I've been getting, though, really recently that I've had to block are just flat out like marketing sales type like opportunity, mostly like employment, like, hey, we've got a great online career opportunity,
Mhm.
pays, X number of dollars an hour, text here to sign up or get more information to sign up. I'm just like, that's just flat out spam. But anything can be an opportunity for them to get information from you. If you decide to engage in that,
Mm-hmm.
then it's going to be, well, send us your information, personal details, name, social security, all that stuff.
Yeah,
And
like, hey, I forgot how to spell your last name, Mike.
yeah. What was your
Well,
birthday again?
I
I
want to
don't
send
know
you
if
a gift
it's
on your birthday.
What was the name of your first dog?
what was the name of the street you grew up on?
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I grew up in a similar town. What wasn't it? This? No, it wasn't that. Oh. Well, and that's a piece that they wouldn't ask these questions if some person out there wasn't willing to offer it back to them, right? That's where we got to really educate as many people as we can. And, just I tell all my family and friends, don't respond to that.
So another one that piggybacks on that, and this is getting maybe off of the phone and text message per se, but into your social media and
Hmm.
particularly Facebook, where you see the posts go around and it's like share it with your friends and put your answers in, and this and this and that. And it's like, find out your Christmas elf name. Okay. But it's use like the day of the month for the first name and then match up the month to this and then match up, and so you're going to sit there and post, well, I'm Mr. Grumpy Giggles or whatever. Well, people are going to reverse look at that. Oh, so that means your birthday is da 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 da
Hmm.
because of the way you answered. And those things I don't see them as much anymore, but they used to run rampant all the
Yeah.
time, not many years ago. And I remember even back then, I was just like, people, like, you're giving away like all your information for the world to see. Like, and I had friends that were wise to it, and like they'd have a friend share it and they'd put in the comment, I don't share my personal details publicly on the internet like that. Like, it's that's exactly what it is they're just going to go look for these things and look in the comments even or something like, oh, look, here's a whole list of people where I can figure out their birthdays. So this person has this birthday, this person has that birthday, you know, or it might be more subtle. It might be more questionnaires, like a 20 question, fill out the 20 questions, and it could be in there like details about where you grew up, what street you lived on, what make and model of car you had. And these are all things that have shown up as questions, as security questions, backup security questions for when you forget your password or need to do a password reset, right? There's
Yep.
supposed to be things that only you know that you haven't shared publicly on the internet for the world to see.
Except on social media and posting back to some of those funny memes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's probably the biggest thing is the private information we've got needs to stay private. The challenge is when you give it to the bank or the email system or whatever it is you're authenticating with, you're actually putting it out there, and you hope that they keep it safe. So, I guess the question again is, how do you stay safe knowing that your text messages are compromised?
I think we
It's
touched on
real
that a
open
little
ended.
bit last week, didn't we? Didn't we talk about also using end-to-end encryption
Hmm.
if you do have to do some messaging, things like that?
Yeah, I mean the CISA and FBI, they're all saying use Signal or WhatsApp or some of those other tools that are end to end encrypted. Now, we're not going to advocate any of those on this podcast. We'll definitely help whoever's doing whatever on their own system, advise them if it's smart or not. But yeah, it's kind of a challenge out there with so many different technologies and so many different vulnerabilities. But knowing that your phones have been compromised to this level, I mean, the carriers, you've got an adversary inside the carrier. They're not just getting a text; they're getting all the metadata from your calls too. You know, who do you call? What are your common phone calls going out? All these data points. So I would suggest that each one of us isn't a target. All of us are a target. And it's just data collection right now. So knowing that is kind of a good thing. Where it turns into a negative thing is when they put the target on one of us.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where we've talked a lot about how you can protect that from ever happening, but it doesn't matter what you do. Like, the info is going to get out. Your password's going to get leaked. Your address is going to get leaked. You know, there's data breaches all the time. And obviously, we know now that they're in the phone system. They see your calls and your texts. So at this point, where that becomes dangerous is like what we've been talking about this whole time is social engineering. So you have to be able to understand what that looks like and then just know how to avoid it, what to do when you encounter it, even if you think it might be or looks slightly suspicious. It's better to just assume it is and, move on with your life.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, the thing is, I've talked about this with other people, you always get those random text messages, kind of like we were talking earlier. I get them all the time, and I'll get one that'll just be like, hello. Nothing else, just a hello. They just want you to respond once so that they can get you on the hook. And so I've told people this, like, oh, well, what if it's just someone I gave my number to, or they're just trying to contact me, like, okay, what psychopath do you know that's never texted you before, just texts you a hello, or immediately asks some question, no introduction, no nothing, like, hey, this is so and so. No one does that. And so unless they can give you, and even if they do, maybe, I mean, if depending on, how dedicated this hacker is into getting your information, right? Maybe they do know who you've given your phone number out to recently, and maybe they do know the conversation that you had.
Mhm.
So it's just one of those things. You just have to be careful, and you have to have confirmation of who you are talking to is actually that person. And even then, if it is that person, you need to immediately make sure that conversation is private, it's encrypted. And so going back to what we were talking about is you just have to know what social engineering looks like and be ready to avoid those hooks that they're laying out there.
All right. I'm gonna flip that on you. Jackson, hit us with some of those that you know of. What are some scams? Lay it on me and Mike.
All
What
right.
can we do?
So let's take one that we've seen a lot in the news recently, or we've heard about, is you have someone in your company, say you're a secretary, and you get a message from your boss, an email from your boss, or so it seems, saying, hey, we're having a party. Can you go out and buy these number of gift cards and just give me the numbers? Stuff like that. That happens all the time. It looks like it's coming from your boss's email. Maybe everything's there except for maybe one little character's different, and you don't notice immediately. Something like that is common, where then that's like spoofing or even whaling.
Mm-hmm. There's a spin on that one that I just saw recently. They said it was coming from the boss. Hey, I lost your cell phone number. What was it again?
I've never had a boss forget my cell number ever. But on that other one, Jackson, that actually did happen in my last job I was at. Our secretary type person at one of our offices got a email from supposedly the boss's wife, which that's something the boss's wife kind of does, is, put together the get-togethers and the social events and the parties and everything, right? That's not out of the ordinary. I think there's a lot of companies where it's like that. If the CEO has a cool wife, she's the one that puts all the fun stuff together, right? And it was his email saying, yeah, I need your help in getting a bunch of gift cards to give to the guys for like bonuses or something like that. And she fell for it for the first little bit because she responded to it and didn't even think to look at the email address. Like, there's just enough information to have a first name, last name, but didn't check the actual email address itself.
Mm-hmm.
And in that instance, there's enough engineering that's gone on that someone figured out through some list of communications. Maybe they captured a bunch of emails going back and forth somehow. Maybe there's an archive they got. I don't know what they got into. Somehow, though, they figured out that, hey, these two people talk. And this one does secretarial type things and business management type things, and it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to go run to the store and make a purchase. And so in that case, it's not just phishing, it's spear phishing in a way that it's a very targeted thing that we're targeting you to go do this thing because we think that you're going to respond if you think I'm this person. Right. And she did for the first part. And then like about 15 seconds after she hit send on the email, she's like, wait a minute. And she called me next. He's like, remote into my computer and look at this email on my screen. So I did. I'm like, you didn't respond, did you? And she's like, well, I did. I'm like, no, it's a scam. And I pointed out to her, see this email address right here? That's not an email address that we have any control over. That's not one of ours. It's totally fake.
Well, and real quick on that one, everybody that I've talked to that runs into those, whenever I do cybersecurity training, I tell people, if you fall for it, raise your hand, say, it happened to me, I admit it, we got this, and then you can move forward. I've worked with companies where somebody doesn't raise their hand, and they just continue on, and the scam perpetuates, and then it goes to other people in the company.
Yeah. And so at least she told me about it, and I was able to take action. We blocked the email address, put a filter on it, no further communications, things like that. I said, just throw it in the trash. Don't respond to that email ever again, and let me know if anything else comes that looks similar. Just let me know about it, and we'll put more filters in if we have to. And fortunately, it didn't get to the point where she spent company money and, actually did it. But, it got close. It got close, but she learned from her mistake.
And so that's where I have a question, because then you're like, okay, so maybe like worst case scenario, everyone works remote, right? You don't ever see the person in person. And maybe there's sparse video calls, but even then we know that video calls can be deepfaked. So at that point, if you're in that situation and you can't, meet up face to face to share important information like that, or to give instructions, or send somebody on an errand, how do you as a manager or a boss, how do you communicate important information to your staff, and how as a staff can I know that you are who you say you are? Even on a video call like this, we know that can be spoofed. So what do you do?
It's a great question. We actually cover this in some of our recent cyber training that we've done. One of the things I recommend is a password. Set up a password that is human to human. When you're face to face, this is how you know it's me. And it's not just a word, it's a phrase, or it could even be as simple as, hey, you remember that restaurant we ate that first time that after you started? And if you do, great. If you don't, let's come up with what that is. And if there's ever something that doesn't sound right, something sounds fishy, hey, Jackson, what was the name of that restaurant we went to?
I don't remember.
And the chances, well, the chances of us remembering it is pretty slim, I guess. But the chances that a hacker's going to know that. But that's where this Salt Typhoon is so dangerous, is because it's not just tracking one bit of information; it's tracking all information coming in and out. So they can dragnet all that. The only way to really protect us is to have that human face-to-face connection. Drop technology out of it. And if you're ever in a pinch where you need the technology, rely back onto one of those things. Have a password, have a secret handshake, have a secret gesture on screen or something.
What a great idea.
Inside jokes.
If you know somebody and you're curious if it's actually them, ask them to start talking about one of their favorite subjects so that they will not shut up. And if the other person cannot keep up with how you know that they would keep up, then you know they're not them.
Inside jokes, favorite subjects, yes, all of the above. Find something you know that is personally identifiable about that person's character that can't be replicated through machine learning, through a deep scan of their social media. Find something. Now, with the spear phishing, that is frightening because, you know, they're targeting you. But I don't know, Jackson. What other vectors can you think of?
Oh boy. Well, there's so many different like terms, that they've come up with, and it all has to do with phishing. I don't know, maybe someone's like a big
Can I suggest one?
go
No.
for it.
Yeah, my BLT drive went AWOL.
Oh, golly. You know these Japanese management techniques.
So, Jackson, since you probably don't get the reference, this was somebody calling into the security office to get the number on a modem, way back when you actually had to connect via modem.
Mm-hmm.
And, info dump, give them a deluge of information, make it seem urgent. And usually the person on the other end is going to just, okay, I'll help you, because they want to be helpful to somebody that is asking them for help. Or,
Right.
I recall a journalist did a thing with his mom, and this hacker, or this scammer, called his mom and asked her for very personal information, but was talking very fast. And you've got to answer. I need this information now. I've got to go and take care of this thing. And she gave it to him because she didn't even verify that it was him or not.
They
So,
created anxiety, and
yeah,
everybody responds on that adrenaline of the anxiety. Oh, gotta fix this. It's an emergency.
yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Or
don't
sometimes,
give information, and definitely don't give information for somebody calling in, because it could be grandma's voice, but it might not be grandma. Hang up and call her back. Or grandma should hang up and call you back.
yeah. One other thing that just reminded me of is kind of on the other side of that. Instead of that urgency, sometimes they'll play dumb, right? Like, hey, I'm new and I'm trying to get into this thing and it's not letting me in. Like, what am I supposed to do? And it's happened before. And they say, oh, do you have your token or whatever? And you say, no, they never gave me one. And they go, oh, well, here, just use this one. And that's all it takes. Sometimes they'll play dumb, or sometimes they'll be, in that rush, like, hey, I need this now. Like, I got to get it. There've even been cases where, especially with AI and the ability for people to now recreate someone's voice with just a sentence from them. Yeah, you can get that call, and imagine you're a parent and one of your kids calls you and says, "Hey, I need my social security number for this thing," or maybe it's even worse like that, where it's like, "Mom, I've been kidnapped. I need you to do X, Y, Z." Like, I mean, there's so many ways that they can instill an emotion in someone to get a response.
Yeah, I think the number one lesson is stay skeptical. Always doubt it. If it sounds too bad to be true or too good to be true, it is. And in the rare chance that it is an emergency room trip or a kidnapping trip, okay, that kidnapper will call you back and demand more information. The police will call you back and say, "Hey, we need you to come down into the station, pick up your kid because they were being stupid on the whatever situation." It's not going to be one and done. There's always another way to backtrack the information. Yeah, one of the frightening ones that I heard about was I'm not going to call out the bank because that's not fair. Scammers called a couple and said, okay, there was a transaction that just went through. They knew details about it, the place, the amount, all the information necessary. They said there was a problem. We need you to send this again. We need to verify. They knew it was fraud. So they called the bank and they were saying, hey, we just got a call from you guys. We think it was a thing. All of a sudden, the fraud department from that bank called them. So the caller ID said, bank fraud department. Okay, so they answered it and they started giving all the information.
Wow, that's clever.
It was frightening how quick they drained their accounts. Never answer a call and give information to that person that called you. You call them. And if that's a scam that they can accomplish where they take over a bank's phone number, you're not the only one that got hit.
Yeah, and
FDIC were kicking at that point.
And you can't just call back that same number. That's not what you mean, right? You have to go to the bank's website, find their number that they post. Not just they'll just dial back the same number. That doesn't get you anywhere.
Or on the back of your credit card.
This one did. This one did because it was legit the number from the bank. They spoofed the caller ID on that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even then,
I mean, it was.
You should type in the numbers yourself, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Don't call the number they give you. Don't call the number. You call the organization by the published numbers. No other method. I know a YouTuber that I was watching him. He actually has an arrangement with his bank. He went in and got an actual agreement saying that he is the only one allowed to transact on his accounts, and he is not allowed to transact on his accounts over the phone because he's public. He's got over 1 million subscribers. His voice is out there. He said, if you transfer my money away and I'm not there in person transferring the money, you pay the bill, not me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good on him. Smart.
One of the things that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I wonder if that will become sort of standard. If that becomes a common enough thing where everyone's saying, "Hey, I don't want to do large transactions over the phone, or maybe even any transactions at all." I wonder if that will kind of become the standard.
It should, and if your bank doesn't support that, find a new bank.
Yeah.
One of the things I did want to circle back on, we had a fantastic conversation last time, and there were some comments on that. There was I don't have the gentleman's name in front of me or the handle. Artie, do you have that? Could you paraphrase his comment for us?
Yeah. So they work for a company, and they were messing around in their lab with one of their products, and they were curious about the raw data that was coming in from the WAN side. So they started looking at that and found a lot of SIP traffic coming from China.
Yeah, that was one of those ones that your firewall is going to get a lot of random traffic. I remember the day when you could put your computer on the internet, no firewall, no filter, no blocks, and it was fine. It was awesome those days because I remember going to college. It had a public IP on the desktop, and I went back to another place at work, and I mapped a drive across the internet. And I was sharing data back and forth from my school to my work. It was great. Well, and then, exploits started happening, and we had to put firewalls, and we had to start blocking things. We had private IP addresses, and those days are over. But it was super cool to have a full routable network. Now, if you put your laptop on public internet, if you put a public IP unfiltered, I bet you within 30 seconds you've been compromised.
Mm-hmm. Because
frightening how fast.
And I've seen it happen myself. I was wanting to set up a server that I could put the movies that I own or even music as a network attached storage, but then also have it available. When I go on vacation, I want to watch a movie that I have. Well, I want to be able to stream it. So I went through a big learning process, and eventually I tore it down, went with a different solution. But the whole thing is, though, as soon as you turn that on, it's not that someone is watching you and they say, okay, turn it on, let's try it. they just have bots. They have millions of them that are just going out there. They're just putting their feelers out, looking for anything that lets them in. And so it's not
Yeah.
something that you're like, oh, I'm too small, they'll never find me. Like, oh no, they will find you because they're just casting a net, and anything that comes up, they'll run with it.
As soon as they find a hole, they will tear it wide open. You know, we
I
had
remember.
a client that their router on the outside got compromised. So their cable modem was actively scanning the internal network. We caught this with some of our tools. And so we were able to talk to them and demonstrate, hey, your firewall has been compromised. So not only did we get that firewall replaced, but we also put a firewall behind that. So it's one of those things we learned firsthand. Don't trust your ISP to be your firewall end all be all security. Put a second layer on there.
I remember the first time that I put up a public web page and then got in on the server and just went peeking in at the logs of all the incoming requests. Because this was a web page, like there was a public aspect to it where it's just anybody can look and see, and that's fine. But then there was an aspect where we kind of had it behind like a username password kind of thing. It was for just some limited access kinds of things. And just seeing the number of hits on that page and where they were coming from and what they were trying to do, like trying to access the other pages behind that password protection and everything, and all the different things that they tried. I mean, and to map it to different countries is coming from Russia, from Norway, from Australia, from China, from Korea, North Korea, South Korea, like just all over the world. You know, just all this traffic, and it's just like kind of maybe like maybe I shouldn't have this up anymore. Maybe I'll just tear it all down. You know, it's like it's almost too much of a hassle because it's having to maintain my own security for something, and it's overwhelming. Like I can't keep up with. I've got other things I got to do during the day than constantly watching this to make sure somebody doesn't hack into it. You know, and so then that's why we leave it to, you know, we're going to go with a web page that's hosted by a host provider because they've put all those protections in place, hopefully, so that your website doesn't get abused or hacked into and modified or anything like that.
Well,
And
here's one.
going back to the like what we were talking about before with like the spear phishing or spoofing and trying to pretend you're somebody you're not, and the extent that they'll go to. You talked about that they can just modify that caller ID to show the real number so you think it's the right person. You could also be getting links in the mail that go to a website that looks identical to the company website, you know, and it's a fake web page that all it's there for is just to collect your information and then to give you some kind of a bogus error or something. But by then they're like, see ya, we've got what we need. So long.
Yeah, if you
So
go
on those
to a web
lines,
page that's asking for your authentication, skip it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Artie.
so in addition to what Mike was saying, there are some scripts out there that when you click on it, it will hide the address bar in your browser and then put up a fake one that's actually got the legit address of where you're supposed to be going. So people glance up, oh, I'm at the right spot, but they don't realize that everything's been spoofed. It's kind of scary.
You got to be skeptical every step of the way. So this guy that made the comment, he was scanning the wide area side of his router, and he was seeing traffic from China. That's not uncommon, guys. You know, all of us with a network, we scan the inside of the network to see what's there. We trust the firewall to filter. Very few people scan the WAN side, the wide area side of their networks. There are many devices. This is actually why TP-Link is up in the news right now. Is it has links back to Chinese servers. Why? What does a Chinese server have to do with the function of my firewall here? Yeah, I could block it in the firewall, but the firewall's still sending messages back out to servers I don't trust or I care to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to him for finding that, and might be worth getting a better investigation on that.
Is
See
that the
what it's talking, what's given up.
firmware level, or is
Could be
it like
firmware, could be in the chips.
in the hardware? Huh. I want to say that I can't remember if it's a TP link, but I flashed it and I put a completely different firmware on it. It's not the stock firmware that comes with it. It's like a OpenWRT or DDWRT or something like that. I can't remember what I put on it, but something totally different for my own use case that I was using it for.
We gonna have to issue an apology for cutting the show short today. Things did not
That's
go the
true.
way that
I
we
didn't
wanted.
realize.
And yeah, I was trying to keep an eye on the time because this was just life happens.
Yeah, we did start a little late, but we got to end on time tonight, guys. So let's put a pin in this. Let's come back to this next week. I love some of this. There's some other social engineering things that I've witnessed firsthand that I would love to share with you, and I'd love to see if you guys could share some of your stories too.
Cool.
For our viewers, please give us some comments. Give us some hints on what you're interested in seeing. If there's any social media things or social hacks that you've seen, or social engineering, as they call it, that you've seen successful, we definitely want to hear about that, because if we can educate people, that's what we're here for. Until next time, I'm John.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jackson.
I've been present this entire time.
We enjoy your presence. Anyways, we'll see you next time.